Hello, and welcome to Women in Business, where we interview entrepreneurs and senior managers and show you the strengths, successes, obstacles, and roadblocks women experience in business. Since I believe every person in business needs to be visible, I'd like to invite you to watch www.sob6, that's the number 6, tips.com, which will give you some valuable information should you get the call to be on radio or TV, which I think is extremely important. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at Gayle Carson, that's Gayle, Gayle Carson 13 at gmail.com, or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter.
My guest today is Melanie Warner. She's an author, speaker, writer, and entrepreneur. She's the founder of the new Defining Moments book series that offers positive stories of hope and healing from people who have overcome extreme challenges in life. She was a successful magazine publisher for over 20 years, and then tragedy hit her family when her son died. That emotional shutdown led to divorce, shutting down her company, then bankruptcy, foreclosure, and even tax court. What had taken her 20 years to build was gone overnight. She had to rebuild her entire life from scratch and found a way to do it in only 2 years. Welcome, Melanie. You've got quite a story to tell us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gayle. I appreciate you having me today.
Well, I can identify with some of what you said because I've lost a son and, of course, I lost a husband. But,
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. You lost a son, too.
Yeah, I did. And it's interesting. But the most amazing thing is that you said it took you 2 years to get it back because you learned a lot. And when you have gone through a lot of stuff, you just bounce back. You've learned something and you bounce back in a different manner. So, I would ask you, who, first of all, are some of your biggest mentors? Who are the people that you've learned from?
Well, that's a great question. I've actually had the pleasure of studying with some of my greatest mentors. And over the years, I was personally trained as a master life coach and business coach by Tony Robbins. And so it's like, it's weird to meet them in person because like reading their book, you get some insight, or listening to their podcast or watching a video, you kind of get a feel and a sense for them. But to be able to have that mentorship relationship with someone that you admire and respect and you've been following all those years, that really, I think, was one of the biggest shifts for me. Also, Gary Zukov, who gave me such transformational healing that just instantly changed my perspective on this grief. And it just was the biggest shift in changing everything. And so his words are actually in the opening to my book. I wanted people to hear what he said and have that healing as well.
So would you say that your defining moment was the death of your son? Was it everything you went through in terms of divorce and bankruptcy and business and all of that? What was your defining moment?
That's a great question. And what I've learned since then, Gayle, is that I've had many defining moments. I'm sure you have as well. I mean, losing your son, losing your husband. And by the way, I have to tell you, my son's name is Carson. So this is very special to me to be on your show today. And it makes me feel like he's kind of here with us. I would say, really, I think a lot of us have to deal with things that go awry with our plan B in life, and we have to learn how to get through it. And we don't realize what we're made of. We don't know what we can do until we have to, because no one chooses to go through these kinds of tragedies or circumstances. And one thing I really learned in the midst of all of this is when I shut down emotionally and I just didn't care about anything else, it made me lose so much more than my son. Like I lost my entire life. And I realized later that even though my son died, it didn't mean my whole life had to die unless I chose for that to happen. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, it hits you. It certainly, you go through a lot of emotions up and down and sideways and backwards. But then you realize, you're here and you've got to keep going. And as you say, there are a lot of defining moments because there's a lot of things that happen to you every single day. But was that your biggest challenge in life, or was it coming back from all of that?
Well, that's a great question because everybody wants to know, what does it feel like to make $1 million? And I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18 years old. I started out as a radio DJ in high school. I was 15 years old and went on my very first job interview in a town in Texas. And I just loved media. I loved being on public platforms and being able to engage with people. So I had a lot of success up until that point where I felt like I'd spent my lifetime building, trying to, I guess, bulletproof my life. And I thought that all the parachutes were in place. And then the economy hit. And at one point, my son, my business, and my marriage were all on life support at the same time. And it's really hard when you feel like you're in control of your life and then that kind of stuff happens and you realize it's all an illusion and that all the things that you think defined you really haven't even been tested and tried. So having to rebuild, that was scary because now not only did I lose my son, but a week after we took him off life support, I had a marriage counselor that said, your husband is never going to get better. The relationship's never going to improve. Like, you really just have to pull the plug on this. And I'm like, I can't do it, and I had business advisors that said, you're losing, $20,000 a month in your business and the structure the way it is. You have to figure out a new option or you have to shut it down. So what I did is I white knuckled everything, which is, I think, what we do out of fear is we grab and hold on to everything that we think we have to have in order to survive. And it just delayed the inevitable. And ultimately, I ended up getting divorced and I ended up shutting down the business, which was my only source of income for 20 years, by the way. So I was a single mom starting over with 3 kids and dealing with all these emotions and all this loss and all this grief. And I just felt like no one could help me. And even though, here's what's funny, I almost got my master's in clinical therapy. I had learned hypnotherapy, hypnosis. I learned how to be a life coach. I had gone through all of that already, and I still couldn't quite get my brain wrapped around all of this loss. And so I basically learned a couple of tools that were really helpful. And most of it was really centered around how I was thinking and how I was looking at these situations that I couldn't control. And that's why I started the book series. I just thought, you know what? I don't ever want anybody I know to have to go through this and feel so isolated. So if I can give somebody this letter of love from my heart and soul of what it took me to get through my darkest period of losing my son, and I can share those stories of loss with other people that are going through it, then they don't have to start at ground zero, right? And they can learn how to find hope and healing and rebuild their lives as well.
So, there's so many things that you mentioned that I want to ask you about. You beat me by 3 years. I was in my first business at 21, but I started working at 13, so I beat you there. But it's interesting because, sometimes you're defined by what you do. And as I look back at my life, I've been defined by who I am, who sees me from the outside. They see me as a coach. They see me as a speaker. They see me as a radio host. They see me as a semi-celebrity kind of person. And yet deep down, I'm a person who likes to spend time with my animals, my pets. But, how did this affect your other children? Because evidently you still have 3 children. They experienced the loss of a brother. How did it affect them?
Well, what was interesting is my kids are all 4 years apart. And we lost Carson well, let's see, he would have been 14 years old this year. And so it's hard to think about him being in middle school and the friends that he had and the people that are now that age that were babies and, were younger and all that, and watching their lives grow up. And it's bittersweet because part of me loves seeing life move forward with people that are healthy and have kids that are healthy. My circumstances were, it was a medical error, and the hospital broke 26 California protocols that day. So we had to make a decision to forgive them. We didn't sue. And it took a while. It took about a year to figure out. I mean, I had people say, oh, you're going to be a very rich woman. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's not going to bring my son back. It's not going to make any changes in this system that's horrific. And so we decided to really go to the source of the issue and challenge the medical community and meet with the doctors and go all the way to the state and become an advocate and learn to change the laws or change, how people are supervised and what type of medications, and that you have to sign off. If you're conscious, they can't give you medication without your permission. And if you're a minor, you have to have the parents' permission to have medication, because they gave him 8 times the legal dose, and it was an unsupervised trainee. And then it caused brain damage and other problems. And I got lucky because they also did it to me, and it caused one of my organs to rupture. So I was very lucky to live through it. And it was a major organ that has 5 major blood vessels going into it. So every woman in that hospital that had ever had something like that happen had died on the table. And I was very lucky to be alive. And I felt like there's a reason I lived through this. But then I went through all this loss and grief, and I thought, God, why did I live through this to just go through such hell? I would have been better off dying, honestly, And there were times where I literally thought it would just be easier to die. I didn't want to die, but I had so much pressure and pain. I didn't know how to live at the quality of life that I wanted to have. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, I've gone through 16 surgeries because of breast cancer. And
wow.
I know, yeah, they're talking about doing something again. And I thought to myself, I just don't think I want to go through one more surgery.
Yeah. Put a zipper up there.
So what, with all of this that you've been through, what do you think is your greatest superpower?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Well, what's funny is I never signed up to be grief girl or bounce back babe. But I literally became these people, and people looked at me from the outside. And, that's marketing, by the way. The inside reality can be very different than the outside perception of who people think you are. And I have lived my entire life in the public since I was 15 years old, but I'm a very private person. I don't like being vulnerable in front of other people. I don't like showing weakness and things like that, because I feel like I'm the source of strength for so many people that rely on me, and I needed them to know I was okay. So I own magazines and have owned magazines and newspapers as well. So I had a local magazine that I wrote an article 2 days after my son died, and I was actually in the hospital myself and could barely sit up. I just felt this, I don't know, something came over me that was just this incredible peace. I had a very spiritual moment in the hospital that I just wanted to share. So I wrote this letter kind of like to my readers, and I published it in our local magazine. And then it just became this huge viral thing. And even now, all these years later, people still say they have it on their refrigerator or something. And I know that was such a letter of love, just to let people know that no matter what, I was going to be okay. And they don't have to avoid me in the grocery store and turn the other way, right? That it's okay to talk about it, and that I want to talk about my son and honor him. And I think just...
So what was your son in the hospital for originally?
He was a baby. I mean, he was completely healthy. You know what I mean? And it was just when they administered some type of medication, they just gave him 8 times the legal dosage, and that's what caused brain damage. So ultimately, he went into a coma and never recovered, and he was a baby.
Oh wow!
And I see. What's frustrating, and then I learned a lot about medical error, and the facts are that more people die from medical error than AIDS, cancer, and car accidents combined in this country. And it scared the heck out of me of ever wanting to go to the doctor. So it made me become a lot more healthy and look for alternative methods, because I just felt like I had major trust issues. And I had the best insurance I think I spent $15,000 on insurance that year, and that didn't help me because the system was broken. So I thought, I want to be able to help people who are at their darkest center of grief. And so I started, using my skills as a life coach. I started doing grief counseling. I did workshops. I spoke at national events. And then I released my book, which is Defining Moments, Coping with the Loss of a Child. And we have 50 different stories of parents who've experienced some type of loss, so that everyone who reads it can relate to it. And that was therapeutic and cathartic in the process of healing for me, is knowing that my son's life wasn't in vain, and it could help someone else heal by sharing his story.
So if you could tell your younger self, your 18-year-old self, your first business self, what would you go back and say to it?
That's a great question. I would say the exact same thing, that I was very lucky to have mentors early on, and I've always valued mentors. And I'm one of these people that actually spends time, energy, and money to work and train with a mentor. And I had a mentor back then who said to me, the most important lesson in your life is to listen to the people who have what you want. Don't listen to anybody else who thinks or has an opinion about what you want, but follow and do what those people have done. Listen to them, talk to them. And he said, take a millionaire to lunch, because most of the time no one else does. And if you're a millionaire, you pay for everybody else. And then I would ask people, I would take successful people to lunch or coffee, and I would ask them questions like, what are opportunities that you see out there in the marketplace today that other people aren't taking advantage of, that you don't have time to pursue? It was a great question, because it really made them get excited about thinking about what is something that they can either get behind or endorse, or something they've always wanted to do, but they just don't have the time to focus on it. And sometimes they would support those endeavors and get behind me if I went with one of those ideas, because it was near and dear to their heart too.
So at this point in your life, with, everything that you've gone through and starting over with your business and all the rest, what drives you the most?
That's a great question. And I got to say, so what I did is I shut down one business, and I basically went and did the same industry as I took on a corporate partner. So we went from having one magazine a month to we now have over 1,000 different magazines all over the US and Canada and the world. And it's really exciting. It's the best decision I could have made. And that
Are you a distributor? Is that what you do?
I'm a publisher. I'm a magazine publisher. And so
and you publish 1,000 magazines?
1,000 different magazines. So we publish private magazines for affluent neighborhoods all over the world. So,
wow.
So if you imagine like somebody that lives in Pebble Beach, California, in a $20 million home on the golf course, you can't just ring their doorbell and say, ding dong, we want to work with you. We want to be your bank or your solar company. So we actually help match affluent people and affluent homeowners with their vendors, with these custom, localized, micro-targeted publications. That's one of my businesses, and I believe in having multiple streams of income. That's a great business model because it's residual income, and it helps small businesses find a niche and market their services, and it also helps local people connect to stronger micro-content than they're getting from a newspaper or any place that they can get online. So that business model has been proven for 11 years and has been very successful. And then another thing I do. Oh, go ahead.
Obstacles you face, though, Melanie. What's the biggest obstacles you've had to face, other than your personal obstacles? What are the biggest ones in business you've had to face?
Oh boy, I could literally write a book about what not to do. I think that's my next one. So the first book was in the series was released a couple of years ago, and I had a major book deal with one of the biggest publishers out there, which was kind of funny because I thought, oh, I've made it. I have this major book deal. My book's going to go all over the world. I would walk into Barnes and Noble, and my book was next to Oprah and Tony Robbins and Dr. Wayne Dyer, all my mentors, and here's my book. And it was great for the ego. Book signings in Hawaii, all over the place. the real truth was, I thought by having a major publisher, it was going to be just wildly successful. And we did sell a lot of copies of the book. However, Barnes & Noble filed bankruptcy. Borders went out of business. A couple of other major book retailers filed bankruptcy and never paid the publisher. And then the publisher basically ended up kind of having some other issues. And now, long story short, after 3 years of having a book out there, I never got paid one dime from my publisher. So,
wow.
This summer, I took my rights back, republished under my own banner and brand as a self-publisher. And in 2 weeks, I hit the bestseller list. So that for me was really another defining moment of just learning how to get past the fear of publishing for myself. And then saying, okay, I can go and publish many more books if I want to. But now my passion is really helping that dream come true for other people. Because I know the process, I know what to look out for. I'm a business person, plus I'm an author. So I help people write their best-selling book in 8 weeks or less. And then we launch it to hit the bestseller status. And then I show them how to leverage that and build a business with it so that their book is profitable. And if they don't have an existing business, they can actually build it from the book as kind of like their calling card. And that's a lot of fun. I love doing that.
Well, I know that that's the free gift that you're offering our audience, our listening audience, that you created a masterclass. It's called How to Write Your Best-Selling Book in 8 Weeks or Less and Make a Profit Even When No One Has Ever Heard of You.
Yes.
And you give them a link. I'm going to say it. It's a little long, so everybody listening, get your pencils ready. It's https://definingmoments.kartra, KARTRA.com/page 7R386.
Oh boy.
So
that was a lot easier is if they just go to my website as my defining moment.
Okay, give them your website.
Okay, thank you. God
them.
bless you for that. It's mydefiningmoments.com is the website. And I think we have a link to that masterclass. It's a free 2-hour training, which is really an overview, a lot of information about how to get your book done, how to publish it. And if you want to, people want to work with us, we can actually be their publisher, but they keep 100% of the royalties and the rights. And we just teach them how to make it and be profitable, which is, like I said, so much more rewarding than just me doing another book. I love helping other people give a platform to share their stories. And we have some incredible authors that are going through this program that are going to be bestsellers in the next month or so, which is really exciting, including an 11-year-old boy who's writing his first book.
Well, folks, if you don't take advantage of Melanie's offer, you're crazy, because I know that there is a book in every single one of you. And I know that many of you are just dying to write a book. And you might think you don't have anything to say, but you've lived a wonderful life. You've done fantastic things. Those of you who are in business, it's the best business card you could ever have. If you were trying to impress somebody and you say, oh, let me leave you a copy of my book, even if you don't sell it to them, you give it to them as a gift, you inscribe it to them, and you sign it. It means so much.
And that's true. And imagine as a best-selling author, my gosh, the doors that have opened up. I mean, I'm getting keynote speaking offers for several $1,000s now. I mean, just more of an expertise. And it just instantly kind of gives you this specialty thing that like no one can ever take that title away. A lot of people want to write a book, but when you actually do and you get it out there and people actually buy it and you're an author, I mean, that's a title no one can ever take from you, ever. And bestseller is like even more exciting because it just opens up the doors to so much more credibility with your clients. And imagine as a business person, you sit there and you have a conversation with your clients, the same conversation every day for an hour or two, or if you're a doctor or an attorney or anything like that. It makes your life so much easier when you can just automate that and take that same information and compile it into a book that people can read. And it can be an ebook or it can be a paperback or a hard copy. There's so many different ways.
Yeah, ways, and you can take pieces of that information from your book and constantly always be, adding something, because you can take put some of the things, put it on a blog, put it on Facebook or Instagram, there's just so many ways to use this. So that's fabulous.
Yeah, you're using the same principles over and over. And it's funny because people go, oh, well, who am I to write a book? Well, you don't have to have permission. You don't have to have a license, a writing degree, or any of that stuff. I mean, we have, a whole team of people that know how to do all that stuff. I don't even know how to do a lot of that stuff, and it's great because there's a lot of support where people are strong, where someone else might be weak. I have a guy that's a client right now who is a contractor who is severely dyslexic and has not ever read he's never read a book in his whole life. He can read at a third grade level, yet he's built a multi-million-dollar business. And then he wrote his book. In the first month, he did $40,000 without even writing his book. We haven't even written it yet. This is just the concept of how many people want to know what he knows as a third-generation contractor. His dad was on the cover of Forbes. He's a really smart guy. But he just always discounted writing a book because of dyslexia. And when I said you should write a book, he literally laughed out loud hysterically for like 10 minutes. And then now he's doing it. So,
well, folks, we're going to have to wrap up. Unfortunately, Melanie, we're out of time. But don't forget, go to mydefiningmoments.com. You'll be glad you did. Take advantage of Melanie's offer. She's a great person to get advice from. So take advantage of what she's giving you with this free gift of how to write your book. I think it's fabulous. I want to thank you so much, Melanie, for being with us today. And hopefully there'll be a lot of people that go to your website and get this, because I think they're crazy if they don't. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Dr. Gayle. I appreciate you and all that you do as well. Thanks for your wisdom and giving so much of your heart to so many other entrepreneurs.
Hi. This is Dr. Gayle, and I wanted you to know I have a whole bunch of other things to offer you. If you go to spunkyoldbroad.com, you will see an array of SOB stuff for sale and all our latest products and additions. If you're interested in getting on TV, I have a brand new course, Get on TV. And if you want to start your own business, you'll want my SOB Guide to Business Success. I know you'll love them all. I guarantee it.
Thanks for listening to Women in Business. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And if you have any suggestions as to who you'd like me to have as a guest, just email me at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. Be sure to check out www.sob6tips.com. And in the meantime, go to www.spunkyoldbroad.com to see the resources I have for you.